I'm on a tour of some of the best tacos in Mexico City with my friend Jorge Vallejo. So what are you going to have? What do you recommend?
For me, this is the best tacos of suadero in town.
I call it the brisket, but suadero is not actually brisket. They take this lowly cut that we grind into hamburger meat, and they make a whole class of taco places out of it. Now, by looking at him, you might think that this young guy is a local culinary writer, maybe a knowledgeable foodie who has a list of the best little-known spots around town. But actually, he's one of the most successful, down-to-earth, and brilliant chefs in Mexico. And I asked you to take me someplace that was a huge inspiration for you, and you brought me here, and your food is nothing like this. Why did you bring me here?
The beauty about food is it's that you don't need to see it, you need to taste it. The last step for a dish, it's the plating.
So you brought me here because you wanted me to start with drop-dead deliciousness.
Yeah, that's why we're here. A mí dame uno de lengua y uno de tripa.
Jorge ordered himself a tongue taco and another one of tripe. I was drawn to the famous suadero taco, plus another one of pork cheek. Oh, that looks so good.
Look at that.
To top off those tacos, they serve two classic Mexican salsas. A fresh green salsa thickened with avocados and a red chili salsa made from guajillo chilies. The raw salsa verde with avocado is one of my favorite things on the planet.
Maybe you want to try this one.
Yeah, sure.
When I think about beef tongue, the first picture I have is from this taco. It's very tender, it's so delicious, and it's cooked like braised. You see with this is a perfect taco. And it's beautiful. But the main idea of these tacos is the deliciousness.
Jorge's restaurant, Quintonil, has garnered a lot of attention in the short couple of years since it opened, and it's been well earned. His preparations look simple and elegant, but the secret behind Quintonil's success is that the food is always immeasurably complex in flavor and delicious. He took me behind the scenes to show me one of his popular dishes, tender beef tongue in mole. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ingredients. I'm just looking over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 20 ingredients. 3 more over there. 23 ingredients. To make the mole, Jorge started by toasting 4 different chilies on a clay griddle. That's like one of my absolute favorite smells in the world. Yeah. I love toasting chilies. He takes those toasted chilies and stores them for a week or so to mellow out their flavor, to bring out more of their natural sweetness. He then added a little bit of lard to a cazuela and started frying some of the other ingredients for the mole. He starts out with onions and garlic. That's a lot of garlic. Then chops up fresh tomatillos and tomatoes and adds those to the pan.
At this point, the comal is not that hot anymore, so we're going to put the herbs. This is bay leaf, oregano, and fresh thyme.
That's going to make a beautiful aroma.
Yeah.
When the herbs are toasty and fragrant, he puts them into the cazuela as well. After that, he fries up a few pieces of bread with the other ingredients. Jorge also toasts sesame seeds and almonds on the griddle. These will be part of the thickening for it, flavoring.
This is for the thickening, and also this mole have this nutty flavor, nutty taste.
Then he adds all the spices: cinnamon, allspice, cloves. What is that?
Ginger.
Yes, I thought that's what that was.
Yeah.
All the nuts, spices, and the dried chilies are added into the cazuela. Then at the very end, Jorge adds some piloncillo, unrefined sugar, raisins, and white pepper.
So we're going to leave it cooking a little bit more. And then what we're going to do is to make the beef tongue.
Jorge cooks the beef tongue a lot like a traditional barbacoa. He starts with a piece of agave and softens and chars it over an open flame. Then he cuts up some more tomatillos and tomatoes for the braising liquid. Now what I'm smelling more than the mole is the roasting
maguey. We're going to put it in here.
He adds the whole beef tongue to the pot, along with those tomatillos and tomatoes. Jorge braises the tongue in pulque, that fermented drink made from agave sap. Sour, tastes kind of beery, something like sourdough starter.
Yeah, it's like a sourdough starter.
and beer, I don't know. I've cooked things in pulque before, and I love the outcome of it because of the acid that's there and that fermentation. After adding onions, garlic, and cilantro to the pot, the tongue goes into the oven to braise overnight.
And this is it.
The tongue has to be peeled while it's still hot to remove that tough outer skin. Then it's cut into pieces for serving.
It's super tender. You want to try it?
Yes. Just melts in your mouth.
Yeah, it's very delicate.
It has such a beefy flavor. Jorge uses some of the tongue broth to flavor the mole. He brings the mole mixture to a boil, and then he puts everything into a high-powered blender that's so popular amongst the chefs in Mexico. He puts in whole cinnamon sticks, nuts, and all. That gets blended into a thick puree.
And then this is the time that we're going to put our chocolate.
After the chocolate is added, the mole cooks for most of a day. It's quite an investment of time to be able to do this in a restaurant. And a lot of restaurants start with an already made paste, but it's never going to have the same kind of flavor. It's not going to have the freshness.
We promote the Mexican cuisine. We're supposed to be like teachers of the new generations of cooks. And the things that I concern the most, it's to these guys know how to make a good mole and know how to make a good tortilla.
At Quintonil, Jorge serves the tongue in mole with a corn masa crisp that he makes with sesame seeds. That's beautiful.
So it's like our tortilla
To have with your mole.
that you have with your mole. Yeah, that's it.
He garnishes the dish with some microgreens and a couple of tiny basil leaves.
And that's it.
It's beautiful. To come here and hear Jorge talk about the beauty of the cuisine, the pride that they have in the cuisine, and it's really exciting to me to see that he is now breeding another generation of cooks that are all going to come with this incredible respect for the traditions of Mexican cooking, though they played it in some pretty beautiful ways. I'm going to show you how to make fresh, homemade corn tortillas. Why? Because they're every bit as satisfying as fresh baked bread. Now, if you live in a community that has a tortilleria, then by all means go the extra mile, go there and buy the fresh ground corn masa. If you don't, buy the masa harina from the grocery store. It is so readily available these days. In fact, I think it's more readily available than really good corn tortillas. I've got my fresh ground masa, and whether you're using this or the reconstituted masa harina, you want to get the right consistency of it before you take another step. That means adding a little water to most of the fresh ground masa because it'll come kind of stiff. And I want to work it until I've got the consistency of a soft cookie dough. I've got it the consistency that I'm looking for. It should be very smooth, soft as you can get it without being sticky. It shouldn't stick to your hands very much at all. Now, to press out the tortillas, you're going to need a tortilla press. This is just a standard issue one. I've cut 2 pieces of plastic to fit the plates, and taking about a walnut-sized piece of masa, rolling it into a ball, I'll lay 1 piece of plastic at the bottom here, put the ball of masa in the middle, cover it with the second piece of plastic, and then give it a gentle press. I want to press it out to 5 to 6 inches. Then pull the top piece of plastic off, and this is the technique that you really have to master, but it's not a hard one. You have to unmold it. So lining the tortilla up with the top of your hand like that will allow you then to peel that plastic right off of it there. Now we're going to go to the griddle and lay it down, and you'll notice a very special technique for laying it down. Instead of throwing it down, which is what most people have a tendency to want to do, I'm going to lay it down right like this, rolling my hand out from underneath it. Now I've got the griddle heated to 2 different temperatures. I know that this side of my griddle is cooler than that side of my griddle, so this is about medium. This is about medium high on the other side. I'm going to leave it to cook for about 30 seconds or so until I notice that it's starting to dry just a little bit around the edges. It will have released itself from this ungreased griddle. I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna flip it over onto the hot part of the griddle and let it cook there until it's lightly browned underneath. That'll take about a minute. Now flip it back onto the original side that was down, and if we've done this right, we'll notice that it'll immediately start to puff up. It'll puff up a little bit like pita bread. That'll give you the absolute best textured tortilla. Another minute or so on the griddle to finish the cooking, but it's really not finished in my opinion. I think you need to stack the tortillas as they come off the griddle, one on top of another so that they steam and completely finish the cooking. You can do that in a tightly closed basket, or to tell you the truth, what a lot of people will use in Mexico is these styrofoam containers because they really insulate, trapping in steam and heat. One of the most classic dishes in the Mexican kitchen is beef braised with tomatoes and a whole bunch of green chili. Some people will do it as a braise in the oven, but in our house, we like to do it in a slow cooker. It's actually the perfect way to do it, I think. You can use different cuts of beef for it. You could use short rib, which we're using today, boneless short rib, or you could do it with some beef chuck. I like the boneless short rib because it's a little bit, what's a juicier cut. So, Lainey, you know how to do this very well. So, okay, you choose which tasks you want to do, and I'll be your sous chef. What do you want me to do?
It's my lucky day. Why don't you then slice up an onion, then roast the poblanos and chop those up, and then chop the potatoes.
I can do it.
I'm going to brown the meat, and then once you're done with the onion, I will brown that as well.
Let's get to work.
Great. So I think it's time to do the layering, shall we?
Yep.
So the first thing is we need the potatoes.
Potatoes are there.
Next is going to be the chilies, roasted poblanos, as well as chopped up serranos. This layer gets a generous portion of salt over it.
And next meat, right?
Yep, you got it.
A little bit of juice that was in that pan.
I think the next thing we've got to do is sauce it, if I'm not mistaken.
Sauce it is exactly
Great.
right.
So I'm going to do the can of diced tomatoes.
Okay.
If you want to do the beef broth, and then we put a little bit of Worcestershire sauce in it, which I love.
Well, it gives that really deep, rich, meaty flavor to it. You just drizzle this over everything. And now to the herbs. I like fresh thyme. We grow it in our garden, so that's something that we can easily lay here.
And I really love bay leaf. We grow that here too, so we can just throw it in.
Such a beautiful flavor.
So this is gonna go on the slow cooker on high for about 6 hours.
6 hours?
Yeah, I don't know if I can wait that long.
Me either. Anything in the slow cooker just fills the house with such a delectable aroma, and this does not disappoint. Now, the only thing that we have left to do with this is to mix everything together and break up the pieces of meat that are in there. It's going to need a sprinkling of salt, and I'm going to use the coarse garnishing salt for this one. Now, if the juice in this looks kind of fatty on the top, it's because your short ribs had a lot of fat in them, and that rendered out. So you want to tip it to the side, tip the whole thing to the side, and then just spoon the fat off the top. How about a quick taco before we serve this to everybody else? Fresh made tortilla?
Thank you.
Oh, that looks good. Get some of the green chili.
Yeah.
Pure satisfaction.
Worth the wait.
A restaurant garden can contribute a lot of fresh flavor and inspiration for any chef. Jorge's installed a rooftop garden at Quintonil where he grows tomatoes and limes and greens and other produce for his restaurant. My backyard in Chicago serves a similar purpose for our restaurants, and it's where I find a lot of inspiration for what I cook. Bill Shores is the master gardener that runs all our garden projects at our restaurants, Frontera and Topolo and Shoko. We're just crouched here over a big hedge of garlic chives. Now, I know you guys know about the regular little skinny round chives, but this is a different variety, and it's a flat-leafed chive. What do you like about it? I know what I like, but I want to hear what you like about it as a gardener.
There's a lot I like about it. This is an amazing plant because it's easy to grow, virtually pest-free. It's a perennial, so it comes back year after year. You don't have to keep replanting it.
Do you have to give it a lot of fertilizers?
We give it a good dose of compost twice during the growing season. And it has a long growing season because it will start up early, usually in late April, and it'll go right through October. So it's got a long period of growth.
That's one of the things I love about it.
And then it will reward you with a nice crop every 4 weeks. So we just keep cutting it, and we've got this whole planting. We just do a quarter of it each week, and it just keeps on producing all season long.
That's super cool. Now, when we moved into this house almost 20 years ago, there was this little hedge like this, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and since it comes back every year, we have the opportunity to use a lot of these garlic chives in the restaurant. From my perspective, I like it because of its flavor. And what we do is cut it and cook it almost all the time because it's a pretty strong flavor in that garlic flavor, but man, you cook it and it's so mellow. Do you like to cook with it?
I do cook with it. I keep one in my backyard. I can grow it in the ground or in a pot. It's easy to grow. There's no excuse to not grow this.
Everybody should grow garlic chives. Another place I find exceptional ingredients is at a farmer's market. When you're looking at produce here, you know that everything that you find is diverse and interesting and at the peak of fresh flavor. Just got back from the farmer's market, and I've got the idea to do a tomato salad because it's the height of tomato season. But I'm going to give it a little twist because I'm going to grill the tomatoes and make a really interesting dressing for it. So we'll choose the yellow taxi, the Cherokee purple. This is a green zebra, and why not one of these really big beefsteak tomatoes as well. I'm going to slice those into about 1/2 inch thick slabs. For the dressing, I'm going to combine a 1/2 cup of olive oil, a 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar, a couple of teaspoons of toasted sesame oil, and a teaspoon of salt. That goes into a blender jar along with the chipotle chili from the can and a couple of cloves of garlic that I've blanched in a small bowl of water in the microwave for a minute. I'm going to blend all of that until it's smooth. Final flavors for this grilled tomato salad. I came back from the farmer's market with green onions, what some people call scallions, knob onions, which are really a favorite of mine, a little more mature, a little bit more flavor of onion to be able to grill here, so I'm going to throw a couple of those on there, and of course garlic chives from the garden. I'll show you how to work with those guys. We need some oil, so I'm going to take my oil mister, head to the grill, and I'll show you how to grill it all. First thing that's going to go onto the grill is going to be the knob onions. I like to lay them on there so that the bulbous end is over the hotter part of the grill. That'll take a little while to cook. Keep turning them until that bulbous end is soft. Next will go the garlic chives. They get sprayed with oil and then they get laid on and turned very briefly, just until they're wilted. Then a few slices at a time. I'm going to grill the tomatoes, first spraying them with oil, sprinkling them with salt, laying them on the hottest part of the grill. It'll just take a brief moment for them to brown underneath. Flip them over, get those grill marks on the other side, and then remove them. Smoky, almost meltingly ripe tomatoes there. Our chipotle sesame dressing drizzled over everything. The garlic chives, I'm going to cut those fine. The grilled knob onions. I need to add a few toasted sesame seeds. Just emphasize that toasted sesame oil in the dressing. And a little bit of cracked black pepper. Now that is the perfect celebration of summer. Jorge wanted to take me to another one of his favorite taco places. Tacos Gus serves tacos de guisados, a huge selection of homey taco fillings in dozens of big clay cazuelas. There are so many options.
Chicharrón prensado, chicharrón suave.
El chicharrón prensado es con algún chile?
Sí.
Jorge got a taco of chile ancho filled with cream cheese and topped in that stick-to-your-ribs homey way with rice and beans. He also ordered a taco of chicharrón prensado, that's pressed meaty chicharrón, made with pasilla chilies, and again topped with a little rice and beans. When it was my turn, I decided on a taco of poblano chilies with potatoes, topped with a little guacamole and fresh cheese. And finally, a Swiss chard taco with beans and queso fresco. Well, these are certainly not your ordinary American tacos. No, but their complex, authentic Mexican flavors evoke the heart and soul of Jorge's cooking at Quintonil. That's good stuff. Now I understand why you wanted to bring me here. Because these flavors, I see how they relate to the cooking that you do.
You know, now as Mexicans we have pride about what we are and what we do, about what our cuisine is. So maybe that's why now the people go to Mexican restaurant, because it's not only myself doing this, it's a bunch of new chefs and
That's what I was really excited about, because I've seen so many young chefs in Mexico City that have grabbed hold of the traditional food. They're not making it in the traditional way. They're not just making street style versions of all of that, but they're rethinking it, reinterpreting it, making beautiful plates, but they taste like the tradition that you find in a plate like this.
That's why it's very interesting to be a cook right now in Mexico, and also to be a diner in Mexico City, because everybody's like very excited about what's happening.
When Jorge said that he wanted to take me to these taco stands, I had no idea where he was going. So he taught me that you can't downplay anything, you can learn from everything, and he started pure and simple with delicious flavor.